I'm very excited about our next presenter. Every month or so, someone pops up on one of the PEZ pages or on one of the email groups and starts asking about insurance for your collections. And I don't know why it never hit me before, but I actually have a good friend in Florida who knows all about insurance. And I asked her to come in and give a presentation about insurance, and she agreed. So nice to do so. She's not a PEZ collector, but she does know me, so she can sympathize. Her name is Nancy Wilkins, and Nancy discovered at a young age that she loves to help people. When she graduated from college, she started working in the insurance industry because she enjoyed taking an insurance contract and making it easy for clients to understand. 35 years later, after owning and operating her own insurance agency, she decided to retire from insurance and concentrate on financial services. Today, she will share some of her knowledge and experience with you to help you understand your insurance a little more. Ladies and gentlemen and PEZ collectors, please help me welcome my good friend, Nancy Wilkins.
Thank you, Landon.
We're gonna pin you real fast.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here tonight. Insurance is an important subject that we don't often take time to learn. So I thank you for coming, and I'm going to try to make this as exciting as I can for you, knowing that insurance is not a fun subject. But I will share my screen with you. If you have any questions while we go along, you can type them into chat, and at the end, I will answer them for you. So let's see. Okay, insuring your collection. I was very impressed with Dan's collection, and I saw pictures of Landon's collection, and I had no idea that there were so many different types of PEZ out there. I had no idea. So now I truly understand why Landon wants me to come here and share with you. First off, let's start. Here we go. Your collection, looking at your room, looking at Landon's room and Dan's room, it looks like a lot of you really take a lot of time and a lot of effort into setting up your rooms and making them and making your displays so beautiful. It would be terrible if something happened to your collection. Horrible. But unfortunately, life happens. Years ago, I had a client's house who was hit with a tornado, and one room was exactly perfect, but the rest of the house was destroyed. Hopefully that will never happen to you, but unfortunately, things do happen in life. So when it comes to insurance, you want to make sure that you are prepared. First thing to remember is that insurance is a contract. Now, most of you who own your homes, single family homes or multifamily homes, usually have a homeowner's form that's called an HO3 form. If you rent an apartment, you'll have an HO4 form. And if you own a condo, you'll have an HO6 form. You might want to write that down and just take a look at your policy. In the top right-hand corner, I have a sample here, but in the top right-hand corner, it should say HO3, HO4, HO6. You want to make sure you have the right contract. Now, I have to give a little bit of a disclaimer here because 35 years in this industry, the last 17 years in Florida, insurance contracts do vary from state to state. But I think by the time we're done talking here, you will have a good idea of how to approach this subject with your insurance agent and get a sense of what your policy offers, and also with the suggestions I give, how you can help protect yourself. Now, the part that pertains to your collections, especially your PEZ collection, is called the personal property section. Basically, the personal property in your house is all those things. If you were able to pick your house up, turn it upside down and shake it, everything that fell out is personal property. And that would include your collections. Your personal property is covered anywhere in the world it is. I don't know if you travel with your pets, but if you do, you would have coverage for it, subject to your deductible. But it's good to know that if you were to take it somewhere else, that would be covered anywhere in the world. And when it comes to your personal property, there's basically 16 things that have to happen to your collection in order for you to have coverage. Now, those are the most common 16, like fire, water, wind, hurricanes, tornadoes, theft, in case somebody stole some. But one of those 16 things does have to happen in order to trigger the coverage that's in your contract. It's a pretty expansive list. They want to cover everything that they can without covering things that happen often. And that's why you won't see flood on this list. Now, if a pipe breaks and your house fills up with water, that's considered water damage, and that is covered. But outside water, which comes in at ground level, is considered flood, and that's not covered. You would have to get your collection covered on a flood policy, which is a separate policy, sometimes available by endorsement, but in most states, it is a separate policy. As you can see, this list is quite expansive. And I put them all down here. Not that you're going to have volcanic eruption or well, us in Florida, we won't really have freezing, but those of you up north might run into these things. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, I have replacement costs on my policy. Wouldn't that apply to my collection? Well, unfortunately, the answer is no. When it comes to personal property, items that are rare, like your past collections, are not normally covered for replacement costs. And I know that's really sad to you because clearly you all have invested a lot of money into your collections. But because of the nature of it, it can't be covered for replacement costs. And that's very similar to like paintings on the wall or other things, dolls and other things that people collect. You're all in the same boat, unfortunately. But there is a way that we can get you in a better position to reimburse you and perhaps cover at least some of what you paid for. And here I just outlined why personal property, why collections are not covered, and also what they pay you if something does get damaged is what they call actual cash value. And that's basically what you could sell your Pez collection for. Each individual piece, if you had several pieces that were damaged, or the whole thing, if you were unfortunate enough and had a total loss. Actual cash value basically represents what you could sell your collection for on the open market. Keeping that in mind, how do you protect your investment? Well, the first thing you can do, and the best thing you can do, is take pictures of it. As a matter of fact, I recommend people go through their entire house at least once a year with the video camera and videotape every single thing that you have in your house. Open up your cabinets, look inside your cabinets and videotape it. Go to your garage and look at your tools and videotape all your tools. Go out in your shed, open up the doors and videotape everything in your shed. Because what's going to happen if you have a total loss, the insurance company is going to tell you to make a list of everything you own. That can be a daunting task, especially if you have a total loss and you have to list every single thing you own. How many screwdrivers did you have? How many sheets did you have? How many pots and pans did you have? That's a really long list. And then when you get to your Pez collection, that would be an enormous task, especially if you have a collection like Landon and Dan. If you videotape it once a year and then make a list of what it is that you have, if something should happen and you lose that collection, you can easily document to the insurance company exactly what you had in your collection. And in your travels throughout the year, if you see a value of a particular Pez dispenser that's just like one you have that's selling for $300 or $400, save that documentation, print it up and put it with your important papers. Because what's going to happen if you have a total loss or have a number of items that are damaged, they're going to ask you what the value is of that Pez container. And now, because you printed it and saved it, you have a way to document what the value is. Otherwise, they're going to ask you to put a value on every single Pez container you have. So any documentation that you have to verify what the value is will just be one more piece of evidence to help support your claim should something happen. Now, I hope nothing ever happens, but between taking photographs or video, either one, and then making a list of what you have, it will just make it easier should something happen. And then make sure when you make your video that you spend extra time with anything of higher than average value, whether that's a Pez container that's especially rare, or whether that be your electronics. You want to make sure that you have extra details on that to verify exactly what you have. Hopefully you'll never need it, but documentation is the key. If you document what you have and update it as much as possible, then the claims adjuster will have nothing more to do other than say, okay, I guess you have it. I guess you did have that piece. And I think that covers it. I think I can open it up for questions now. And let me look.
There were quite a few questions, Nancy, that came in.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
There we go.
The first one was about earthquakes, if earthquakes are covered in those limited liabilities you've listed.
It does vary from state to state. In Florida, you cannot even purchase earthquake. But if you live in California, you can.
Yes,
So,
I didn't happen to know that person lives in California.
yes. and I can understand, because look at the way Dan's collection and your collections all lined up. If you had an earthquake, they would all fall and they could easily break. But I would definitely talk with your agent about that, especially because earthquakes are so prevalent there in California. But it does vary from state to state.
Another person asked if groundwater seepage through a concrete floor is considered flood damage or water damage.
It is, because of the way it's worded, it is considered flood damage. Now, in order for flood damage to be triggered, it has to, on a flood policy, the water has to cover at least an acre or cover cross 2 property lines. So a flood policy may not respond either, but I would try to keep everything up. I know they're plastic, but I would try to keep your items that are more susceptible to water damage up if you're known to have a problem with the water, because it would be considered flood because of the way it's worded.
Well, makes sense to me. There was a little bit of question about the not covering replacement value because it's a rarity or antique, and I guess there's a little bit of confusion because in our world,
Yes.
The Pez aren't necessarily rare, but they are expensive or harder to find.
Exactly. And that's why I say, if you see someone selling a Pez, just like one you have, make sure you either take a picture of it and have it somewhere away from your property, or print it and put it with your collection, because replacement costs, which is on most people's policy, will cover the normal things in your house, like your TV. If the lightning hits your TV and it's destroyed, and the insurance company pays for another TV for you, you're entitled to replacement costs on that TV. You're entitled to get another TV that's of like kind and quality to the one you have. Now, the problem is with the PEZ containers, the value goes up because they are so rare. And that's why the replacement cost doesn't apply, because it's hard. Some of them are, I imagine, impossible to find again. So that's why they can't charge a fair premium for it. So that's why they can't offer coverage when the value is really high above what's normal. But replacement cost does cover most of the things in your home.
In the PEZ world, we have a person who puts out a price guide every year, and it's considered to be the standard for pricing across the board.
Perfect.
So would that be proof enough for an insurance company if you had
Perfect. Yes.
documented which ones you have?
Yes, that would be great. So document what you have with pictures so they can say, yes, I see that you have this, especially if you do it like Dan, where he just went around his room. That way they can see that he's in his house and this is his room that he's going around. It helps verify that, yes, he really did own this, because the problem is that unfortunately people are dishonest with insurance and they claim they have things that they don't have. So the more proof you can give that you really own it and show it in your house, then the insurance adjuster has no choice. They will have to pay for it.
Well, that's just a good reason to be on one of our virtual PEZ conventions, because we record all of these. So we'll have record, even if you don't, we'll have record of everything you have. So that's a good plug for us, and a good plug for John Laspina's guide. So he could put that in there. Works with insurance. They'll put that in the front on the cover. Let's get away from a few of the things you talked about and talk about some other questions that people have.
Sure.
And they were talking about if you think that getting a separate coverage for collectibles or like for high-end collections, because some of our collections, you know, one piece can be worth $35,000. There's some people out there who have those. So would a separate policy for those be worth it?
I think if you have a substantial collection, a separate policy would be a great idea. There's two reasons to that. One, you're dealing with a company that specializes in collections. So your claim process is going to be easier because that's all they do is deal with people who have collectibles, which is a great reason in itself. But number two, should you have a claim, it's not filed underneath your homeowner's policy, because if you have too many claims under your homeowner's policy, you could find yourself in trouble and not be able to have insurance on your home any longer. But by having it under a separate policy, that keeps your claims record clear on your homeowners.
Oh, that makes total sense to me too.
Mhm.
We have somebody who asked if they are putting some of their personal property in storage unit. Does the homeowner's policy cover the items, or do they need a different kind of policy?
Normally, your policy gives 10% of your personal property coverage away from your home in a storage unit. So if you have, say, $75,000 on your personal property, you would get $7,500 in a storage unit. Now, that doesn't apply if it goes to a second home, because you need to insure that home separately. But if you're talking about a storage unit, normally it's 10% of your personal property coverage. And that's another reason a separate policy may come in handy. If you have $75,000 for personal property on your home and you have a $30,000 PEZ container, that's taking up half your limit. So having a separate policy would allow you to fully insure your collection and then leave your personal property on your homeowners just for your personal property.
Wow. I've gone through all the questions. I don't see any others, unless there's any other questions for Nancy.
And you have my contact information, Landon. So if anybody thinks of any questions later, they can reach out to Landon and he can put you in touch with me.
Nancy, one last question, and it may be out of your expertise, but do you have any idea if rules are similar for Canada or international? We have a lot of Canadians in our community. If homeowners insurance is similar.
I think they are similar, but they should definitely check with their agent to be sure. What you want to do is you want to call up and ask them specifically, if I have a collection and I take the photos or video and I keep a list, do I need to do anything else in order to have coverage? And then ask about that separate policy. If your collection is substantial, the separate policy is definitely worth it.
And do the big name insurance companies, the ones we would recognize, do they usually carry separate policies or have separate things for collections like that? Or is it more specialty insurance agencies?
It's more specialty. Usually you have to go to a company who wants to write their own policy. The big companies tend to use standardized policies, but because this is a unique exposure that they're covering, they want to be able to write their own policy and make sure that they can give you that replacement cost on that item or a higher value.
So I didn't understand the importance of having an insurance agent until I met you, Nancy, and you and I had so many conversations over the years about insurance. It blew my mind how much it is. It's like having a real estate agent. It's so important. Can you let everybody know what the best way to go about finding an insurance agent is in their areas? What's the best way to find somebody?
The best way to do it is to look for an independent agent. And the reason I say an independent agent is that independent agents represent a number of companies. So based on you, your house, where you live, and your history, they can find the best company for you. That's not to say your State Farm or your Allstate is bad. You can call them too. It's just you would have to call them individually. And what you want to do is find someone who'll take the time to explain things to you and not just rush you on the phone and rush you off the phone. You want someone who will actually take the time to listen to you, that you can ask questions to, and that they communicate well with you.
Well, that sounds fantastic. If you have any further questions, you heard Nancy say that I have her contact information. I certainly do. And you can send it to me and I'll send it to her. That way I can filter out you crazy people and only send her the really good ones. Thanks a bunch, Nancy. Thank you so much. That was really fantastic. And I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of play on that video.
Great.
So thank you so much.
All right. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay.